Hey folks, it's Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case it's going to be survival kits for school-age children. Let's suppose you have a son, daughter, 10 years old or so, give or take, and you're going on a trip over the weekend, maybe 3-4 days, and you're wondering what you can give them to take along with them in case they have a problem. Now, you have, of course, a few limitations. Usually, you're not going to be able to give them a ton of stuff. That's going to be pretty restrictive. And then stuff like knives, anything that could be considered a weapon, usually by most school policies is a big no-no. Still, there are a few things that you can have with them which can be very useful if they happen to need them. Usually, any of these trips, the school itself is going to be asking for some kind of flashlight. At least I remember that from my own trips when I went to school, and for my kids as well, my children. Usually the school organizes some kind of night fun activity of some kind, so they're going to be asking maybe for a flashlight, and if not, usually there's not a problem with sending one along with them. It doesn't get much better than having a pencil headlamp. Allows you to use both hands, and in case of getting lost, let's think realistically some of the things that could go wrong in such a trip. Maybe it's in a park, in some outdoor environment, and your son, daughter gets separated from the group, gets lost, it's getting darker faster than expected, all of a sudden you're there in the outdoors and it's nighttime. Well, with a flashlight like this one is actually pretty good. It has a good amount of lumens, a lower lumen mode as well, strobe and red light, with a few simple indications, such as, for example, I would go like, if you get lost, if you get separated from the group, just stay put, don't continue walking, trying to get somewhere if you don't know where you're going. Stay there, turn on your flashlight, put it on the strobe mode, explain how to do that, and wait until your teachers, the adults that went along with you, find you. Don't keep walking when you're lost, right? That would be a very good piece of advice. And with such a flashlight, they will actually be much safer than doing anything else. Just an example. Then, besides the actual flashlight that you take, there's something of a small kit that they can have in their jackets. And it's not too big, not heavy either, so you can have this in an interior pocket of some kind. And of course, you have a Ziploc bag that could be used for carrying water, but mostly the idea here is keeping the components dry in case it's raining, in case they happen to fall in a stream, in a river, in a lake, get wet. This is going to be keeping the things inside dry. So what we have here is just a few items that can be useful in some of these, most likely emergencies in such a trip. First of all, the whistle. The humble whistle saves lives all the time. When lost, rather than shouting, screaming, using a whistle is much more efficient, doesn't use as much energy, and it's most of all it's heard from a much greater distance than just screaming and shouting. So if lost, use your whistle. Flashlight is so important that you should include another one in the specific little kit. It's that important, so have one there as well. These two combined is working like a good signaling combo right here. Then, of course, the almighty cell phone. Yes, there are places where there's no signal, but today, more and more, most places you do have one. Now, the thing is that kids usually do have a cell phone of their own, but usually, as us parents know, they end up using up the battery for games and fooling around, and they don't have it when they need it for emergencies. So it makes a lot of sense to have a small, cheap cell phone like this one. It's like 15-20 bucks, give or take. Actually, the battery life is quite good. This cell phone, when turned off, will easily last for an entire week, if not more. So it's kept specifically for emergency use there in this little bag. Something goes wrong, they get out their cell phone, turn it on, they have battery, they're able of making a phone call rather easily and calling for help. That is an invaluable asset, which was unthinkable not that long ago for those of us that have a few more years. We cannot include a ton of food, but a little bit of candy there, yes, absolutely. Dextro energy, this is basically sugar. Dextrose is faster assimilated into the body, so lost, hungry, at least it's something, at least a little bit of energy to have with them. Some basic just a few band-aids, antiseptic wipe, a larger band-aid so as to patch up a little wound. Nothing too serious, but if things that could happen in a trip, they fall, they get cut somehow. That can be very handy, and a child should know how to clean up a wound and patch it up with a band-aid. Then of course cash. They're maybe going to be having a wallet with some cash, but besides that, in case it get lost, a little bit of money and a couple coins for an emergency phone call, for vending machines. These kids are so used to having cell phones, many don't even know that there are things such as public phones. Teach your kid how to use a public phone. Of course, a little bit of money, maybe for buying food, for getting a taxi. If the trip is in a more of an urban environment, cash can be very useful. So emergency money. This is mostly for illustrative purposes, but I don't know, maybe $20, $30, something like that. Not a lot of money, but a little bit so as to get them by. Now let's suppose that they can't take a knife with them in this specific trip because maybe it's a Boy Scout type of trip, or the school is okay with it or such. Then you have a few options such as a Victorinox. This is actually my son's Victorinox, a pretty good classic knife. There's a Spyderco Delica, and there's the Leatherman Sidekick. I really like the Victorinox, especially for a kid. All kids should have a Victorinox of some kind. The Explorer is quite good, and yes, it's the kind of knife that lasts you a lifetime and has a ton of uses, of course. The thing is that maybe since it's not a locking knife, locking knives are much safer, especially for children that may not be as experienced. Maybe one of the things that you can give them instead is a knife like the Delica, which locks into place. If they're maybe a little bit heavier but much more useful, even, is a multi-tool. It has the blade that locks into place as well. Not as strong maybe as a lock back of the Spyderco, but still a nice little blade there. Saw, and a ton of other uses. It's not an expensive multi-tool. I think it's going for $30, give or take, and it's one of the things that if they happen to need it, it's probably one of the most useful of the three that I have here. So yes, if they're able to take a knife with them and you're not wanting to spend a ton of money, Sidekick is actually a great option. Folks, this is basically it. Just a core setup like this, and you maybe would add different things depending on the specific trip that you have in mind, but this is a good core setup for most school-age children. If you have any comments, suggestions, leave them below. They're always welcome. Remember to subscribe, share the video with your friends. Take care. See you on our next video. Have a great day.